Okay, here's our Edwards evaporator that we're selling. The inside of the bell jar. So you can see that plate in there that turns. Will hold 4 different boats with 4 different materials. This is the shutter that you put over as you're starting to melt your material, and then you open it up to onto your substrate, which would be up underneath this bell jar here. There's the thickness monitor that comes with this unit. These different buttons back here, the only one that is currently hooked up to anything is the white button, and that is to vent the bell jar to air when you're ready to go into the bell jar. Here's your LT selector. This is you got 10 volts and you got 30 volts. So you can click between 2 of those. Here's your penning gauge that goes up into the 7th range. And that's reading directly inside of the bell jar through a sensor that's right underneath that little unit right there. And this is your Pirani gauge, which is reading at your 4 line down by your mechanical pump, and this only goes in 10 to the -3 range. Here's your actual controls for heating up your boat and your unit. That's to turn it up. That's your amperage gauge. The LT units, what this unit's hooked up to be. And it has the trip and reset. Now we have converted this over to a turbo unit from a diffusion pump, which is much nicer to use. It's a Leibold 500 milliliter. This is your controls. Pretty simple, start and stop. Here's your lights telling you normal when it's winding up, or if there's been a failure, like if your water shuts off. Coming down here, there's your Leibold turbo. It's connected up underneath your unit up here. And here is almost a brand new Dixon mechanical pump that we also added in here. So all of this has just been rebuilt. This is brand new, so got nice new pumping on this whole system. There's your Pirani gauge right there on your 4 line, and the other gauge you can't see, it's up under here. It measures the pressure inside of your bell jar. This is the handle here that you use to switch between roughing to backing to actually pumping out your chamber. And for a little walkthrough on our evaporator, that's pretty much about it. Okay. Got it? Okay. Bell jar sits down on the top of that thing just like this. Seal it down on the plate here. Now if we look for the vacuum here, you see we have no vacuum yet. I'm going to open up this bell jar to start roughing it down. In order to rough it down, take the handle, turn it to the roughing stage. Currently sucking on the jar. Within a minute, we'll start getting a reading from the. Okay, now you can see that we're right at the top of the 3 range here, 10 to the -3. So now it's safe for us to open up the bell jar to the turbo pump. And we do that by taking this handle, spinning it around to the backing, pulling it out. And now we are currently opening up that bottom plate there, which is opening it wide open to the turbo pump. As you can see, our pressure has already dropped down, and our pressure is continuing to drop. And when it gets into 10 to the -6 range, then we'll be able to evaporate our material onto our substrate. It's the range 1, 2, and 3. Top scale is 1, that gets into the 5th range. Second scale is 5th and 6th range. And the third scale is 6th and 7th range. We're right now in the 2nd range of the 2nd scale, which is good enough pressure to start our vaporization. This is our amperage gauge. This is our knob to turn up the amperage, and the LT button is the button to turn the power on to our crucible. Hit that, that light's on, and the reset green button's down. Then you should be able to start increasing the, by turning this knob, turn up the amperage as you see it go up. And now we're going to watch our crucible. As we can see, our crucible will start heating up. Or excuse me, boat, not crucible. Let it get a little bit hot. Add some power to it until our pellets melt.
Turn the shutter off.
Okay, our pellets have now melted, and we should start. As you can see, our data rate starts to climb up as it starts to vaporize.
Turn the shutter on.
Open our shutter so it'll get our substrate on top. We are now depositing. Yes, the vacuum will, the pressure will increase a little bit because you're vaporizing and outgassing. That's okay. As you can see, it's even depositing on our glass of our bell jar now. Okay. We've now completed our deposit. Turn off our power.
That didn't change. Recording.
Okay. Now, when you want to go inside your bell jar here, currently open up to the bell jar. We've got to shut the bell jar. That plate drops down. Now you're roughing into the backing plate here, or into the backing line. And now we want to leave it right there. And we can now currently open this to air while everything else remains a vacuum and the turbo remains. Hit this button here, and we are now evacuating the chamber to air. No, we don't need to record this. Okay, yeah, go ahead and record it. Ready?
It's recording.
Okay. Now, when you want to go inside your bell jar here, currently open up to the bell jar. We've got to shut the bell jar. That plate drops down. Now you're roughing here, or in the backing line. And now we want to leave it right there. And we can now currently open this to air while everything else remains a vacuum and the turbo remains. Hit this button here. And we are now evacuating the chamber to air.
Okay, I'm starting. Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Take the bell jar out.
It's not leaking.
Slip it straight up.
So yeah, there's no obvious leaking.
This little bowl here we've added onto it to help keep the bell jar clean and easier to clean up.
Yeah, no leaking, no thermal shut. Basically, by the time I'm going to shut the switch to the
That
bottom.
off. This is our substrate holder. This is the wafer that we put in for our test.
Today too.
As you can see, it has deposited the aluminum onto the wafer. It is now used up. The boat is broken. This thing has the capability of holding 4 different boats, and you can rotate them around, put in your different materials. And up here is your crystal sensor thickness monitor. Right here.